Hey there, guys. Alright, today we are back with some more of the Great War. This time, week 108, and I think I'm going to be very happy with today's episode. Cadorna snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. If I'm reading this right, I'm assuming this means Cadorna suffers a defeat when he should have won a battle, which is absolutely hilarious to me and well deserved because Cadorna is a fucking dumbass, and I hope he gets sacked. I have a feeling he will never get sacked from his job, which is a fucking shame. I want this man to fucking suffer. Like, this man is a. I didn't think it was possibly dumber than Hutzendorf, but Cadorna found a way. So, anyways, before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Alrighty, go ahead and dive right in.
In war, you can often thank your commander for his skill when you win a battle. But don't count your chickens before they're hatched, because that commander can often snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
You know, if he was competent, he would win. But he isn't. I really fail to here's the thing that amazes me about this. Because I would say modern military generals are fairly competent. I think they're definitely more competent than the generals of this time period. Now, of course, over time, the modern day generals should be more capable than their predecessors because they have their predecessors to look back on and learn from and not make the same mistakes as their predecessors, right? However, how here in World War, especially for Austria-Hungary, Italy not so. Italy, I understand kind of not being, well, no, not really, because they just unified. So they should have generals that learned from the generals that fought for Italian unification. But I don't understand, with all the war that really happened in the 19th century, just like there were plenty of wars happening in the latter half of the 19th century. How are the generals here at the beginning of the 20th century so incompetent compared to their predecessors? They should not be this incompetent. I don't get it. I don't. It's like, because then we go to World War II and suddenly we have a lot more competent generals. Like, the Italians also, I think, have more competent generals. Now, of course, they suffer from a bunch of other issues in World War II that make them an incompetent army still. But their generals, at least one of them, can't remember his name, I don't think was he was an okay general, I'd say. Not bad. Certainly not fucking Cadorna. I'm already getting mad and we're only 20 seconds in and Indy hasn't even said anything.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, the Italian front came alive and the Italians broke through the Austro-Hungarian forces to take Gorizia. The Turks took Bitlis and Mush from the Russians, while further north, the Russians took more territory from the Austrians. On the Western Front, the small daily battles at the Somme and Verdun continued, seemingly endlessly. They certainly continued this week, that's for sure. The British advanced northwest of Pozières on the 12th, and then from Pozières to the Somme River itself the 18th. The French took the German 3rd Trench System from the Somme to Hardécourt, and then took trenches along the 15-kilometer Cléry-Maurepas-Guillemont front. As for the German maneuvers at the Somme, on the 18th, there was a German counterattack from the Leutze Wood. According to war correspondent Philip Gibbs, they advanced shoulder to shoulder like an iron bar, and it was sheer suicide. British machine guns mowed them down line after line. Gibbs also wrote about the tone in German letters taken from captured or dead men in that period. One read, "I stood on the brink of the most terrible days of my life. They were those of the Battle of the Somme. It began with a night attack on August 13th to 14th. The attack lasted till the evening of the 18th, When the English wrote on our bodies in letters of blood, "It is all over with you." A handful of half-mad, wretched creatures, worn out in body and mind, were all that was left of the whole battalion. We were that handful. German morale was also taking a hit at Verdun. On August 18th, the French took the whole of Fleury, and French morale rose perceptibly at Verdun in August. Everywhere, the Somme, Russia, Italy, the Near East, everywhere, the Allies were attacking and seemingly successful, and Verdun was no longer seriously threatened. German morale correspondingly fell, and in August, partly because of the exposed ground it had to defend, German Fifth Army casualties were higher than those of the French at Verdun for the first time.
Nice.
There was also dissension
Good job,
in the
France.
high command there. On the 15th, German Army Chief of Staff Erich von Falkenhayn wrote a memo to the Fifth Army that they must maintain an aggressive posture. He had not given up the prospect of future attacks. And at Fifth Army headquarters, General Francois, running the show on the left bank, wanted to renew the offensive. But General von Lochau, on the right bank, who'd been there since February, thought that would lead to pointless casualties and that they should consolidate what they had. The week ended inconclusively. And on yet another front, things were inconclusive. On the eastern front against Russia. On the 12th, the Germans retreated from the Strypa River, and the next day, a German attack at the Stockhod was repulsed. But things weren't going so well for the Russians anymore. In the south, General Platon Leszczycki's men had to pause until the 12th, 2 days after Stanislau had been taken. When German reinforcements arrived to help the Austrians, he no longer had the forces to overcome Central Power's defenses. Though twice in August his forces set foot on Hungarian soil, the threat in the Bukovina was over. Mikhail Alexeyev, the Russian chief of staff, was still obsessed with splitting the front at Kovel, but that was unrealistic once German Marshal Paul von Hindenburg's command had been extended over Austrian forces and large reinforcements began arriving. So, men and material that could have helped Leszczycki attack Hungary.
One what if I'm curious about, like, it doesn't have to, nothing really changes in this war, aside, like, this is the only thing I would change out of pure curiosity. What would have happened if from the very beginning, or maybe after Austria is suffering all those defeats in the mountain passes or whatever, in 1914, 1915, when they were nearly broken. What if after that defeat there, Austria-Hungary agrees to German superiority, for lack of a better word, and just allow the German commanders to take charge of Austrian armies? Because clearly the German commanders are the most competent in this war. I would go Germany first place, the British second, the French third, fourth place, the Russians. Actually, I could hear an argument for either the French or the Russian leadership swapping generalship swapping places. Serbia felt like they didn't get to know enough, but I'll put Serbia, Montenegro, and Albania above Austria, Hungary, and Italy. I'll put Bulgaria above Austria, Hungary, and Italy. I'll put the Ottomans above Austria, Hungary, and Italy. And then Austria, Hungary, and then last place, Italy, for right now.
Were wasted on a fruitless battle. The Russians had almost no maps, and German control of the skies not only bombed the Russian lines with impunity, but made Russian artillery preparations nearly useless. Since the attacks were failures, Brusilov ordered the men to go over to defense. Still though, attacks on Kovel would continue throughout the month, though under General Alexei Evert's direction, and he was pretty incompetent, as we've seen. And with the same result, the army breaking in the face of high explosive shells and machine gun fire. The casualties were too high to count. Hindenburg wrote, "All we know is that sometimes in our battles with the Russians, we had to remove the mounds of enemy corpses from before our trenches in order to get a clear field of fire against fresh assaulting waves." But really, with the end of Leszczycki's drive by the 15th, the Brusilov offensive was over. And another offensive also ended this week, one that was only a few days old, on the Italian front. After taking the city and region of Gorizia last week and realizing the scale of their breakthrough, the Duke of Aosta told Italian Army Chief of Staff Luigi Cadorna to chase the Austrians beyond the city, but he was slow about it. The Austrians,
of course he was,
seeing no point in defending hills and mountains with the city lost, pulled back to the Valona Valley. Now, the official entry, with the Duke of Aosta riding his horse into Gorizia, was planned for the 10th, and Cadorna concentrated on strengthening his flanks. So from the 9th to the 11th, the Austrians had time to get in order, and when they did get moving, Italian artillery lagged behind the infantry, too heavy for pontoons to cross the river. And the Austrian gunners were soon ready behind their barbed wire. And Austrian General Borojevich's reinforcements had finally arrived. The Italian attacks did not begin until the 12th. Wave after wave of Italians was beaten back in the old familiar way, and when Cadorna called off the battle the 16th, the Austrians had lost 50,000 men. The Italians at least twice that, according to Mark Thompson in The White War. Still, people proclaimed that a wholly Italian army had defeated a great foreign army for the first time since the fall of Rome. And all the Allies agreed that capturing Gorizia was a major deal. Cadorna's position as Generalissimo was now totally secure.
How? It doesn't make sense to me. An Italian morale
surged, but his limitations as commander were on full display. He didn't exploit the breakthrough, and by the time...
I don't think he knew how to do anything. I'd be surprised if he knew how to wipe his own ass.
He saw the opportunity. He couldn't get his men to the Austrian second line before they beefed it up. You want to know something else that Thompson and I think is kind of astonishing? The Vipacho Valley, which led to the heart of Slovenia, now lay open, and no one seemed to realize it. This week, for the Italians, had kind of been a case of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Certainly, many historians agree that if Cadorna had driven eastward the 9th and not waited 3 days, breakthrough would have been certain, and the Duke of Aosta could have ridden his stupid horse into Ljubljana. But still, the Habsburg Empire was shocked, and at least the gate on the road to Vienna lay open. The Italians had shifted the front eastward, but the challenge ahead for them now was uphill attacks against well-built and well-defended positions. And while the fighting in Italy was over for now, the Balkans flared into life this week. On August 17th, 18,000 Bulgarians attacked the Allied line near Florina, where it was being held by the Serbs. The Bulgarian commander had fought with the Prussians against the French in 1870 and said, "We shall be in Salonika in a week." Indeed, the Bulgarians quickly took Florina, but further advances were driven back. And at the east end of the front, the British Royal Navy shelled Bulgarian positions near Kavala, while British aircraft bombed railway bridges near Drama. And there was a political development in southeastern Europe this week as well. On August 17th, Romania concluded an agreement with the Allies for intervention in the war. Romania had so far preserved neutrality, while allowing German and Austrian supplies and personnel to pass through Romanian territory to the Ottomans. But now, the Romanian government wanted to take advantage of the Russian successes against Austria-Hungary. In return for soon joining the war, Romania would receive Transylvania up to the river Theiss, Bukovina to the river Pruth, and the whole Banat region. And that was the week. Alexei Brusilov's massive offensive coming to an end, at least for now. German despair at Verdun and the Somme, the Bulgarians launching new attacks, and the Italians bringing their offensive to a close. But it had taken a big prize, even though the aftermath was yet another Italian debacle. And they'd inflicted 50,000 casualties on Austria-Hungary, and that empire was reeling. Sporadic fighting on Russia's southwestern front would continue for a while, but for the roughly 3 months of the Brusilov offensive, the Austro-Hungarian Empire took nearly 1 million casualties.
Oof.
1 million young men lost in one summer. How long would they be able to keep on after that? How long would they be willing to keep on? Only time will tell. If you'd like to know more...
And that was Cadorna snatches defeat from the jaws of victory and gets promoted for it. The Great War, Week 108. I've said what I needed to say throughout the video here with my hatred of Cadorna. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.